Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Today we've got a little video on factoring, just a reminder to help us with our factoring that we learned in 9th grade. And we're going to use this to solve quadratics in 5.3. So here's some factor puzzles. I think you may remember doing some of these. So we're looking to pull out common factors from the products inside. So if we look here, we have 12. Oh, I got to turn my marker on. We have 12 and 8. So what's a common factor, a common thing that multiplies into both of them? And that would be 4. Okay, and then we find our ones on the outside, the other side. 4 times what is going to give me 12? Well, that's 3. So I'm going to carry that over. 4 times what gives me 8? Well, that's 2. So I'm going to carry that over. Now I'm looking at, I have 15, and one of my factors is 3. So 3 times what gives me 15? And that ends up being 5. And I bring that down. 5 times 2, we get 10. All right. Hopefully that looks a little familiar, but we're going to try another one. All right. 8 and 14. What's a good number 8 and 14 both have in it? That would be 2. So let's go to the top. 2 times what gives me 8? That's 4. Bring your 4 over. All right, 2 times what gives me 14? That's 7. Bring your 7 over. And then 7 times what gives me 21? That ends up being 3. So bring your 3 up. And now you're going to multiply 3 times 4 to fill in the box with 12. So I'm going to take, I want you guys to pause the video here and try the next ones. I'm going to put some of the numbers in, and then to give you a little help if you're a little stuck, and then I'm going to pause my video again and fill the rest in, and then you can compare them. All right, so pause the video here and go ahead and start working on them. All right, here's your little check-in. Here's some numbers I've plugged in for you. So if you need to, make adjustments. If not, then give it a second and you'll see the rest of mine pop in. All right, take a peek. How'd you do? Hopefully you did all right. All right, so let's just remind ourselves about factoring. Factoring is the act of taking apart a number or an expression and writing it as a product of its factors. So like 20, and now remember we did factor trees too. So 20 is going to break down into like 4 and 5. 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. So my factors that I can't break any farther are 2, 2, and 5. Same idea here. 15 breaks into 3 and 5. Neither of them go any further. And you'll see here with my variables that I have a squared, so I have 2a's. I have b to the third, so I have 1, 2, 3 b's. That's factoring. We're breaking it apart into the things that multiply together. All right, so factoring is it's pretty much simply the opposite of FOILing or box method, and it's the opposite of distributing. So when we factor, the answers are going to look to the similar problems that we'd had before we multiplied. So for example, in our previous units, we've talked about, well, multiplying things like this. We did FOIL or we did box method. That now is what our answers will look like. All right. So just a reminder, GCF, this is greatest common factor. This is where you pull out the largest thing that multiplies into both of them. Okay, general trinomials, things like this, we're looking for what multiplies to your middle term. Oh, no. Multiplies to your end term, not your middle term. Your middle term, what two things add to your middle term and multiply to your end term? Now, when you look at the next one, it has an a in the front. Don't forget you're going to take that a and you're going to times it by c. Now we see AC. What multiplies to AC and adds to b? So hopefully you remember doing that little x that we had done before. Multiplies. All right, and grouping. Grouping is where we have 4 terms and we split them. So let's just jump into some practice here. Some GCF factoring. So we're just going to see here. So it pulls out the GCF from the factors and write it on the outside of the remaining factors. So I like to start thinking about this one by breaking down mine. So I get 6 and 2 and 3 and 2. Okay, 36 breaks into 6 and 6, and both of those break into 3 and 2. Again, we're thinking about what multiplies to those things, not what adds to them. So I'm going to make myself a little more room. My 12x turns into 2 times 2 times 3 times x, minus my 36 is turned into 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Now I'm looking for pairs to pull out, or not pairs. Yes, pairs, because it's one from here, one from here. Okay, I have a 2 from here, and I have a 2 from here. I have a 3 from here, and a 3 from here. So anything I've circled, I'm going to put one of them on the outside. So I can pull a 2, and a 3 out of both of them, and anything that's not circled gets left, x minus 3. So now I'm going to multiply back together. 2 times 2 times 3, and I'm going to end up with 12 times x minus 3. Now this is the long way to work that all out. If you can look at that and go, I could tell that 12 came out of both of them to start, that's just fine. If we look here at 8, some of you might go, ooh, 8 and 16. Well, I could pull 8 out of both of those, so that's coming on the outside. I have x squared, so that's thinking about x and an x, and then I have 1 here, so I'm going to pull 1 out. So what's left, 8x squared, and I took and divided out at 8x, I'm left with just an x, plus 16x, well, I divided out at 8x, so I'm left with just 2. Okay, I'm going to make myself some more room. So if we look here, I see 39x squared and 13x. You can choose either one of these methods to find out what you pull out. Okay. In number 10, same idea too, except for this time we have 3 terms. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to pause your video here and try 9 and 10, either of the 2 ways. All right. If you didn't get it right, that's just fine. Shoot me an email. Ask me a question when we're back together. How did you get that, Mrs. Matheson? I got this part, but I didn't get this part. Okay, work together. All right, general trinomials. So let's think about this. Okay, and let's start. These are nice. We're gonna do my x. So my 8 goes on top and my 6 goes on bottom. What multiplies to 8 and adds to 6? So what 2 numbers multiply to 8 and add to 6? Well, I know 1 and 8 multiply to 8, 2 and 4 multiply to 8. Those are the only ones. So 2 and 4 are my numbers that multiply to 8 and add to 6. So we can use a shortcut with this one, and we can just take and plug these two in place of our middle term. I'm going to show you grouping with this. Sorry, I should have clarified. Plus 2x plus 4x plus 8. All right, so I've taken and split my middle term into the 2x and the 4x. So I'm going to group my first two. Now I'm going to do GCF for each parenthesis. Well, what can I take out of x squared and 2x? I can take an x out, and I'm left with x plus 2. Well, what can I take out of my second 2? I can take a positive 4 out, and I'm left with x plus 2. This is good. You want your parentheses to be the same. Now you can write that as one parenthesis, and then these leftovers here are going to go in your other parenthesis. So that is a refresher with a grouping. Now if we look at here at our next problem, I'm going to show you with shortcut. So we want to look for what multiplies to 12 and adds to 13. Notice it's not always my larger number that's on the top. It's my end number that's on the top and my middle number that's on the bottom. So things that multiply to 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Which out of those are going to add to 13? 1 and 12. So these two, now here's my shortcut. Those are going to be, those are going to be my factors that I can just put right into my parentheses, and I now have it factored. Now grouping will work every single time, and grouping is going to help us carry over into factoring trinomials that have an a term to it. So don't totally disregard grouping if you're not a fan of it. All right, so I'm going to leave 13 for you guys to try. So pause the video quick and give 13 a try. How'd you do that with the negative in there? Multiplies to a negative and adds to a positive. So one of them has to be negative, one of them has to be positive. Now if we look at these next three problems, this is difference of two squares. So this is something that we've seen before. Our first term is squared, our second term is squared. You get the same things in the parentheses, but remember one is plus and one is minus. So let's go ahead and look at the first term. So what squared gives me the x squared? That one's kind of an obvious, an x. What squared gives me 4? Well, that's 2. These are your two terms that are going to go into your parentheses. One is going to be plus, and one is going to be minus. All right, so let's go ahead and look and try 15. So what squared gives me x squared? Again, it's just x. Well, what squared gives me 64? That's our 8. So x plus 8 and x minus 8. It doesn't matter if you wanted to write the x minus 8 first and the x plus 8 second. That's totally fine. All right, tackle 16 on your own. So pause the video here. I'm going to pause too. Do 16 and come back and check in. All right, so what multiplies by itself to 25? That's 5. So x plus 5, x minus 5. All right, so let's go ahead and tackle our x squared terms. So like I said before, we're going to multiply the first term times the last term. So this AC is going to go in the top. Well, 2 times 5 gives me 10. And my middle term, 11, is going to go in the bottom. So what multiplies to 10? Well, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. And that's where I run out of my terms. So 1 and 10 are the only things that multiply. Now you can't use the shortcut here. You have to try our grouping. So 2x squared plus 1x plus 10x plus 5. So notice all I did was I ended up really splitting my middle term. So now we're going to tackle our grouping. I'm going to put my parentheses around my first two and my parentheses around my last two. So what can I divide out of 2x squared plus 1x? Really, the only thing I can take out of both of those is an x. So we end up with 2x plus 1. So 10x plus 5, what can I divide out of 10 and 5? I can divide out a 5. So I'm left with, 2x plus 1, which is good. I want the same thing in both my parentheses. So I have 2x plus 1, and then my leftovers go in my other one, x plus 5. This, again, you can have those parentheses in the other order. You could have wrote x plus 5 times 2x plus 1. Both would have been fine. Let's tackle our other one that looks like this. I'm going to take my 3 times my negative 7 to get negative 21. And I have negative 4 in the bottom. So what multiplies to negative 21 and adds to negative 4? So you have to remember here, you can have negative 1 and positive 21, but you also can have positive 1 and negative 21. So you have to think about you have both those factors. So let's write these ones out. The next one I'm going to see is 3 and negative 7, and negative 3 and positive 7. And that should be it. So which ones of those add to negative 4? Well, it's our 3 and our negative 7. So let's go ahead and split our middle term. So 3x squared plus 3x minus 7x minus 7. So we're going to do our grouping. So I can take out, this one's nice. I can take a 3x out of both of those. But when I divide it out, it ends up plus 1 there. Now notice here, my third term is a negative and my fourth term is. So I want to take out a negative 7 out of both of those. That will give me my x plus 1. If I just took out a positive 7 in my parentheses, I would have had negative x minus 1. Those wouldn't have been the same then. So x plus 1, 3x minus 7. All right, we have one word problem. All right, the area of a rectangle is 8x squared plus 10x minus 3. Find the dimensions of a rectangle. Don't forget, area of a rectangle is length times width. So all we're going to do is factor, and our two sets of parentheses, one is our length, one is our width. So I'm going to multiply my 8 times my negative 3. We end up with negative 24 and adds to 10. Okay, so negative 1, 24. 1, negative 24. 2, 12. 3, 8. Did any of those add to 10 yet? If I have a negative 12 and a positive 2, those multiply to negative 24 and add to a, oh, nope. Here, how about this? Positive 12 and negative 2. Those multiply to negative 24 and add to a positive 10. So see how it's important to watch your positives and negatives? It does matter where you put them. All right, so 8x squared plus 12x minus 2x minus 3. I'm going to group them, first 2, last 2. I can take a 4x out, so I'm dividing that out. So I have 2x plus 3. Now here I see negative 2x minus 3. Again, I'm taking that negative out. And I'm left with 2x plus 3. Excellent work. We have the same thing in the parentheses. So 2x plus 3. And then my leftovers get thrown in the other one. 4x minus 1. And there you have a little factoring review, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully it wasn't a total shocker to you. Shoot me an email with questions and go ahead and make sure you get the 5.3a worksheet done. See